Hey everyone.
Hi, Carter.
All right, looks like we got a lot of people jumping on here. I know Rich is going to be joining us late. Patricia is not joining us, and Bob Ely is going to be late or may not join us.
Who did you say before Bob isn't joining us?
Patricia.
Okay.
And then Rich is going to be late.
Okay.
Hi, Carter. Sorry, I wasn't able to call you earlier. Can we talk maybe tomorrow, or you can raise it at the meeting tonight?
Yeah.
It's a little early tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Frederica.
Hi.
Dan, where are you?
Me? I'm here.
Okay.
I think Bob just sent out the draft calendar also to everybody. Okay, so
Okay, we have a quorum.
okay. I'll give it just another second. A couple of people that that we need are not here yet. Okay, we've got Susan and Chenault is the other. So I guess we'll get going. All right, so welcome. We're at our executive meeting before the full board, August 18th. I guess the agenda is going to be similar to how we've done this in the past. I'll put that forward to you guys. It'll be a report by Bob, district manager's report, the chair's report. Actually, no, we'll switch it a little bit. We'll do reports from the committees that met this month. And then after the committees that met this month, then we'll go to the calendar and discussing next month and any updates from last week. Does that sound good to everybody? And then any new business and old business. Okay, Bob?
You're muted, Bob. You're muted.
I'm muted.
Sorry about that. A couple of hours ago, I got an email about a program that the Department of Records and Information Services, also known as DORIS, which is not irrelevant, has been undertaking. It's to create an archive listing women who've made a difference through their activism. And this is connected to the Women's Suffrage Centennial. So I forwarded that to you. It's a, when I saw it, I thought, boy, there's so many women in our community. I mean, it's not limited, it's obvious, it's national, but there's so many women in our community who might be a good fit for a listing like this. And it's, so I just out of curiosity, there's a search engine, and I put Doris Diether's name in there, and she's already in there. I thought this was a program, and she was put in 4 years ago by Allison Greenberg, It's got a nice photo of Doris and a small little summary of some of kind of, it's hard to summarize Doris in a few sentences, but it does it. She did her best. Anyway, I thought it might be interesting for anyone who has some interest in this to take a look at it, and maybe there's someone that you might know, more than one person who you might want to. I don't want to say nominate because I don't know what the screening. I haven't looked at it that closely. I don't know if there's any filter or screening process, but I certainly think that we probably all know women who are well deserving of inclusion. And I think it's supposed to end at the end of 2020. They're trying to get 20,000 names in the database. They've got a little more than 5,000 right now, so they've got a long way to go in a short period of time. But I think that's something that not just mentioning here, but I'll probably, maybe something we could put on our website and try to promote a little bit if you guys are of a similar mind. Secondly, I just wanted to mention and make a pitch for Maury's Garden. Maury Schott, our former board member, is leaving he's moving back home to North Carolina, to Greensboro, very soon. I forget the exact date, but it's within the next couple of weeks. And for the past many years, Maury, some of you might know this already, Maury has been tending, actually I think he's the one who created the garden over in a little Green Streets area, a triangle over by Christopher and Greenwich Streets, next to the archive building. And he's looking for someone to take over for him. Maury says it's not a lot of work anymore. It's just really just watering the plants when we have a dry spell and doing some weeding occasionally. But if anyone on the board, if you know anyone who has the time to do that, please reach out to Maury. And if you don't have his contact information, I can give it to you. But he'd be thrilled if somebody would be willing to kind of adopt his garden. And that's really all I've got right now, Carter. That's it.
Great, thanks, Bob. Last week we had a moment of silence for Tom. Obviously a big loss for us. I know that BIP is having a memorial tomorrow, and I had been in touch with his niece, and I guess Greenwich House is working with their family on a virtual memorial. I guess that's tentatively scheduled for September 23rd. So I figure with VID, the people who are participants and members of VID will be a part of that, and then we'll broadcast to the board members any details that the family's okay with that with respect to the September. On another note, I just saw this afternoon that the MTA buses are going to be resuming fare collection at the end of the month, which is a big step forward. I guess that, supposedly they've missed out on a lot of revenue generation from that. Homelessness continues to be a topic that keeps coming up. I know that, it's something that we see a lot more. It's hard because there's not a lot of metrics. So it's a lot of anecdotal stuff, but I guess the mayor has reversed course on housing folks in some of the hotels on the Upper West Side and might be returning them to shelters, which is, I guess, unfortunate as far as from a social distancing perspective, but we'll see how that goes. I know it's not the Lucerne, that hotel was housing people from Kenton Hall and the 3rd Street Men's Shelter, which is not in CB2, but it's immediately across the street. And so it's definitely, impacts our community in both directions with them leaving and them coming back. It's been a lot of topic of discussion at the 9th precinct, issues around a lot of the homeless shelters. Obviously, there's a lot of need for services. There's huge growing issues in all of our parks. I know, I'm sure everybody's seen sort of the encampments that begin, disappear, and then the ones that have stayed for a while. And we'll get to discussion for next month's topics with Susanna. That's pretty much all I have to report as far as since last week. Bob and I were talking. I think that there's still some issues with open restaurants and just a few key areas as far as getting around some areas. Mulberry and Elizabeth in particular, the clearances there are really tight for a lot of the fire trucks and I guess, sanitation trucks. So when you've got restaurants across the street from each other in some of these narrow streets, it's causing some issues. But I guess we haven't heard back from DOT, but Bob had reached out to them. So that's what I've got. I'm gonna go into the committees that met this month. I don't see any hands up. Donna, do you want to talk about the SLA meeting this month?
Yep. So we had 5 applications. 4 of them were deny unless. 1 was a deny. It's another one of those nonprofit members sort of situations at the base of an apartment building, which would have just been for the residents there, but it's the nonprofit aspect of it being the membership and the conflicts with that was what led us to the deny on that. And then we had 1 withdrawal. So overall, it was a relatively easy month, I'd say.
Great, thanks. Janine?
We met on basically specifically on open streets for schools, and that was last Monday. We've still heard nothing from the Department of Transportation, and I last talked to Corey's office on Friday. So that still remains open. The good news is that District 2-wide or Manhattan-wide, they're tracking the applications for schools through the DOE, through the superintendent, so they have a list. There were 9 schools that, as of last Tuesday, that requested them in District 2. 6 of those were in Community Board 2, so I think a lot of schools don't even know about this. So we're gonna have a resolution shorter than last month's, but it'll basically list all the streets that have been requested with some caveats, because there was one that was, there is one school, it's a high school, that's on 14th Street that exits onto 13th Street between 5th and 6th. And they basically, their HVAC system needs a lot of work. So they're kind of in the most desperate situation. And they were just looking for a portion of space on 13th Street. So, you could close the whole street, you could close part of the street, you could do what restaurants are doing in the parking spaces. So there's lots of options. At this point, they just need some options to work with some people. And then we have another resolution that basically is a very short one, and we're still fine tuning it, but it's along the lines of, whatever happens with schools, and every day, who knows what's going to happen. Kids at public school are going to be in school at most 1 to 2 days a week. So it's really about remote learning and why that's so important. And that, the DOE still needs to address the safety issues. So those are our 2 issues. Those are 2 resolutions.
Great, thanks, Janine. I wonder if the reasoning is DOT is too busy dealing with other issues, and so they haven't quite gotten to it yet. It seems to be a common theme, and that also is what the mayor responded to the governor, from what I last read, with respect to gyms, in that the health inspectors are too busy with the restaurants that they can't go to the gym, so they don't have enough personnel to really monitor this. And I'm just
well, I thought the health inspectors were, if I were mayor, which I'm not, I would have a reopening czar, and I would have someone from DOH, DOT, DOE. I'd have every agency that needed to be in there in the room, and there would be someone in DOT in charge of this, and someone at Parks in charge of education outside, and someone at the department. It's a mess.
A lot of last minute running around. From what, there's a lot of movement. I saw that the Catholic schools in Brooklyn and Queens are all meeting, are all in school 5 days a week. So that's their plan. Is there any update on the city schools? Is there any?
I feel like I get about 10 emails on this an hour, and I'm not joking. There was a letter of a bunch of principals in District 6, which is in Washington Heights, who basically are opposed to reopening. There's a lot of old school buildings, not in Community Board 2, but down in Battery Park, a very brand new building with a full nurse is the 50% of the staff had an open letter that they don't want to reopen. So there's pressure, you know, the union doesn't want to open, the principals union doesn't want to open, the cleaning union doesn't want to open. So not sure what's going to happen.
Got it. It sounds like things are playing out every day. Thank you, Janine. Valerie, reopening working group. You guys met last night.
We did. We are fresh off a meeting last night, which I think went really well. Yeah, last night we had the launch of our series called Restarting Together, and it was Restarting Together Universities. We had added at the last minute the head of NYU's COVID-19 response team, and I think that that was really great. So we had a real medical professional to answer questions, both questions we had gotten submitted ahead of time, as well as questions from the audience as well. But I think we did a really good job of really consolidating the questions ahead of time. And I think it went shorter, it could have gone a lot longer, and could have been a lot more intensive. So I think people felt heard, and we had good retention throughout the meeting for the duration of it. So I thought that was good. You know, our next meeting is September 24th on a Thursday, which is a joint meeting with arts and institutions, which will be restarting together museums and cultural institutions. So obviously those are opening up next week, so at 25% occupancy. So it'll really be kind of more of an update from the Whitney, and we're gonna reach out to other institutions in the neighborhood to join us, just to see if they can have, you know, what are they seeing, and we'll have residents, I'm sure we'll have feedback, because there's going to be lines having to be queued up probably in sidewalks and public spaces, so that'll be interesting to hear how that goes. But we also are going to do a big update on the open restaurants program. You know, it's been about 3 months since that program has started, and it's, you know, very early infancy to the actual really 2 full months of the outdoor dining. So we're going to do that and really kind of, you know, we had over 145 people at that meeting. So I think that after we'll have some good data on the program, and just you know, while it does end October 31st, right now, we all know that that can change, and I'm personally bullish going to get somewhat extended, but also know too that we are also kind of tracking this. There's a lot of dialogue about heat lamps and the structures and public safety, and I'd really like to give a shout out to, I know that's been on my mind, I know it's been on Carter's mind, and Will Benesh was also on his mind separately, and he reached out to me about it, and has found some really great info, and has really kind of helped bubble that up to us. So we are looking into that. There are 3 agencies that oversee that, and I don't want to go too much into that, but it's there's no propane heat lamps used in the city, but you do have to connect to a gas line. It's a very expensive endeavor, and it requires permitting across 3 agencies, NY, DOB, and the DCA, or whatever that agency is now being called. Yeah, so we'll be doing that. And we are also looking into, I'm really interested in kind of how the hotels are reopening. You know, there are some that have just recently reopened. They've been closed this whole time. So we're gonna kind of look into that and maybe get an angle on the local tourism, because that feeds so much with what's going on in the district. So stay tuned for the dates for those 2 kind of out in the near future events. I think that's it for me. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks. Chanel?
We only have one of interest, a proposal for a bank into a recently refurbished and absolutely pristine, and one of the, I would say, 5 best cast iron buildings in Soho. And every single thing was just awful. It's just plopping a bank onto and into a cast iron building, including slicing into the bulkheads that are those wonderful grill ones for ATM machine. We were not generous in our recommendations. As a side thing about schools, the St. Thomas Choir School, which is a boarding school, is going to reopen. It's an unusual situation, 30 boys and unlimited resources to do it right. It'll be interesting to see how it goes along. The unfortunate, the choir can't sing, but they can have their classes.
Thanks, Chanel. That's interesting. And then Susan, the bylaws working group.
Well, everyone has received the group's report. We have not gotten any feedback as yet, which I take as a positive, which means I guess no one's found any real issues, and it makes sense. There is a meeting tomorrow. If anybody has anything they would like to share with the group. But I think the report basically speaks for itself. Hopefully, the provisions will be passed so that we can have our elections run smoothly. I would like to thank Bob for sending that information about some of the options with regards to electronic voting. I'll look into that further to see if that's a simpler option than the one that's laid out. But otherwise, it's good.
So are you guys still going to meet tomorrow? I guess we have a couple hands. Let's hear with Susan.
Hi, thanks. The question that I had, Susan, was that I know we've been talking a long time about the need to catch up with the 6 months of the chair term because of the schedule of new members coming onto the board. But it surprised me that you took the option of extending, nothing to do with Carter, but Carter's term or the current chair's term 6 months when that person was voted in for 1 year, instead of what seemed to make more sense to me was to take the next chair and everyone would be voting on someone going in for 18 months. So that
no, it's not. It's an abbreviated term of 4 months that our November election will be for a 4-month term.
Right, I understand that, but the reality of it is that the person who's currently the chair has 4 months longer than ever has happened before. So in my mind, it's an extension of the term. I see how you describe it that way, but if it happened for the following chair instead of the current chair, then the membership that voted on for the chair would know that that person was going to be in for 16 months instead of 12. So, because you have to add 4 months one way or the other, but this was a decision after the fact when the person was elected, instead of a decision made by the board for the next chair, when instead of voting the person in for 12 months, you're actually adding on the 4.
Well, this is actually mirrors what we did when we moved the elections from May to November. Mm-hmm. We had a sort of a stump term or a special term, and then the new cycle of 12-month terms. Mm-hmm. That was how I did it, and of course, it doesn't stop anyone from who wants to run will run. Right. It doesn't guarantee Carter anything.
I
only
understand.
perk that it might be is that considering how up in the air everything is, people might feel that they have an opportunity to not. And of course, I'm speaking for Carter. I don't know that Carter's going to run. Right. So. And of course, that's
why I said it had nothing to do with Carter. It was it was just about the position, because you're right, we don't know what anyone will do. Anyway, I understand your logic. I just thought about it a different way, but I accept your logic.
Shirley.
Yeah, Susan, at first I had told you that it sounded very logical to be recommending these changes because of the change in the term limits for community board members. But the more I thought about it, it seems awfully premature. I cannot really understand, for one thing, why we would even be doing this in our bylaws at this point. We really don't have to worry about this for several years. But in addition to that, it's doubtful that by the time the 8 years are up, there will even be term limits. There was tremendous controversy in discussing the charter, and there was tremendous opposition to term limits on the part of many elected officials, including borough presidents, including our own borough president, who said that they were going to certainly try all they could do to eliminate this term limit requirement in the next charter revision. And these charter revisions seem to happen quite often. So I'm really saying, I think the whole thing is premature. The more I looked at it, the more I can't understand why in heaven's name we'd be doing it now. There are so many years until there will be changes.
Okay. Well, first of all, since we were dealing with the whole general topic of elections, it was something, instead of doing things piecemeal, we took the whole large topic together. Second of all, I wouldn't make any assumptions. That's the state of the law right now. And our bylaws should address what it actually is the law. If it changes, then it changes. I don't know how premature it is, considering that it takes years for people to learn, enough about the board, enough about the responsibilities of various offices before they step up to run for an office. It's not something ultimately that we have, the board may elect to set that part aside and not. That is something, in the wisdom of the board, but it's part of the whole, we were dealing with the whole concept of elections holistically.
Okay, you said you have years. We do have years, as a matter of fact. So that's my point. I also did want to point out that I was a little confused about why there was the recommendation to have an election for another chair if a chair stepped down, when it seems much simpler to, as we've always done, to have the vice president, the first vice chair, not president,
well,
step up. It seemed awfully excessive.
Well, the reason, what happened in the discussions is that we recognize that it's one thing when there's 2 or 3 months remaining, and that that aspect of the first vice chair stepping in would remain unchanged. But if you had a large portion of a term remaining, the idea that the first vice chair would step in and might not have actually, just because it's technically part of their responsibilities, they may not really be prepared to do that. And we felt that it would give the board more say, that if you were dealing with a vacancy that involved, it could be 8, 9, 10 months, that maybe the better thing would be to have someone knowingly run for being chair, so that this person was, really comfortable with assuming the responsibilities.
Okay, I disagree.
No.
And I can bring it up with the full board as well.
Absolutely.
Dan?
Hi, thanks. So I had a similar question to Shirley's, and I think that we discussed that enough. But I was going to ask another question, as you mentioned the last bylaw change going from May to November. Can you explain the reasoning behind making that change?
Sure. At the time, because new members join, their term started of April 1st, at the time the board felt that it wasn't fair to have new members participating in elections when they really didn't know who they were voting for, much about the process or what was, the whole situation. They were just too new. to make informed choices. So the decision was to move it to later in the year, so people would have had a chance to sort of familiarize themselves. Because of term limits, we now realize that we would be in a situation where there would be board members who would simply be preempted from running for an office because their terms would expire before the term of office expired. And that we would be in a situation where you'd have, in a sense, they'd kind of be like lame ducks, and we may be losing the opportunity for people who are among the most experienced to run for office. So it was felt that if we realigned them, then we wouldn't have this problem. In fact, by moving it to March, everybody who's voting has been on for a year already, so there is no problem with having people who lack familiarity with the board or its membership.
So just to be clear, if anybody wants to run for this interim term, they would nominate it in September.
Yes, everything will run according to the same schedule. The only difference is that that term is going to run from December 1 to March 31st. That's it.
Janet?
So I have just two questions. Can the person, if somebody runs for that, 4-month period, will they be eligible then for another year, or if there are people that run for that 4 months, are they ineligible for the following year? That's one question. Question number two, my concern is, we're doing this in August where we may have very low attendance this Thursday. So we're making, I don't know if it's a material change, but somewhat material change with possibly low board attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a question in there and then just sort of a statement.
Okay. First of all, it does not, it would not apply, running for the special term does not affect term limits. So that's not an issue. And the reason it's being done is that our normal election cycle starts in September. If we don't approve this now, then we're missing out on the opportunity to address this it's sort of like the last right time to be doing it. Now, it's true that normally August is not a month we meet, and we don't have, I guess the countervailing aspect of having low attendance is that because we meet on Zoom, our attendance is actually pretty good. Correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but our attendance is really quite good because we meet in this fashion. So I don't think there's really a question of people not being aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
There is also the issue that it's generally improper to change the election cycle while the election process is in process. And so in order to change the election coordinating committee, in order to change the electronic voting aspect of this, it needs to be done before the whole election cycle begins. And that's something that Susan and I had talked about, and doing it sooner before September is more appropriate to doing it after. And that's also why Susan's already distributed it to the board. I mean, the report, was distributed well in advance specifically for that purpose so that people can be aware of it.
Thank you.
And Valerie has a question.
And we're to approve this on Thursday, is that
Yes.
so that it's ready for September? Okay.
It will be on the floor for voting and discussion and voting on Thursday.
And Valerie?
Thank you. First, thank you again for all of the hard work of your committee, Susan, and you guys have been meeting very diligently. But I want to say that I support the special election to fill the chair position because it's just a checks and balances for everyone involved, for the time and commitment of the first vice chair, as well as the voice of the board. So I just want to put my support out for that. And then as far as the timing of the election then being in March, correct? And that's starting the election process in March, like with nominating the actual vote, like we vote.
Right.
Okay. So I'm curious because I know, I mean, just in the short time I've been on the board appointments sometimes tend to get go into May, June. Obviously this year was because of the pandemic, but even the 2 years past that I've been involved, I've just noticed like they sometimes just kind of lag, and then
right,
it's just for various reasons, the volume of applicants and the staff time to look at, the borough's president's office staff time. So I'm just kind of curious as to what, are there less board members voting, or I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So,
well, since we will not be, there won't be any conflict in terms of new members, because new members terms never start before April 1st. So that when the election cycle starts, everyone will have been appointed, they will have been appointed for months at the very least. So I think it kind of avoids that.
Perfect. Okay, that was my question then. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out one thing. Actually, it works well with the Hudson River Park Advisory Council because we changed our bylaws and we're having elections exactly under the same process.
Oh, good.
Another element which hasn't been raised yet, but I realize that it also allows a board member who's been a member for 1 year to run for all offices. Because one of the requirements for running for chair is that, I believe, is that you have to have been a board member for a year. Is that correct, Susan? Did I read that? I think it might be mentioned somewhere else in the bylaws, but that's, neither here nor there, but that was a small little thing that with term limits, which even though I think all of us probably support undoing them, that's much more difficult to accomplish than I think is as much as people want to do that, it's much more difficult to accomplish that. I think City Council has to do that. There's some talk, but I was in some discussions. It's a little higher hurdle than one would think, particularly given that City Council has term limits as well.
Right. So, any other questions? Okay.
And you guys are going to meet tomorrow, correct? Just so.
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled. It may be brief, we can discuss some of these thoughts that you've been sharing with me today, and to make decisions about where we go next. There's plenty more work to do.
All right, and I just want to note that Mar put the information for the memorial that VID is hosting tomorrow in the chat. So if anybody would like to join that, the Zoom link is there. All right, so I don't see any other discussion on this. So we're going to move to the calendar for next month. And
maybe?
What's up?
You want to talk about land use?
Oh yeah, I was just going to go through, SLA, we don't need to discuss that, right, Donna? It's pretty much straightforward. You've got a pretty heavy agenda at this point.
Right now, it looks like we have a pretty heavy month and we'll need both nights.
Okay, and I don't see that Rich is on, but I know that he's got something. Shirley, I'm just going through the months, so just for traffic. Oh, you're on mute, Shirley.
We didn't meet, nothing much to report.
Oh no, I meant for next month, for September.
Oh, for next month, yeah, DOT is coming. They are presenting, well, I don't know if you call it exactly a plan, but an action that they want to do. We've actually been asking them to do it on University Place, which is reversing more of University Place. Right now it goes from 14th to 13th. They want to reverse it from 13th to 12th. The reason being to avoid the kind of pandemonium there is right now, where when cars turn in to University Place, they have to turn out again on 13th if they're going in a different direction. This will give them the option to either go east or west by adding 12th. And so it's a beginning. We would really like to see University Place as a greenway someday, but we're getting a little at a time, and so we're looking forward to that.
Did we get any?
That's really the major thing. Yeah.
Did we get any updates on the temporary bike lanes? Did we get any feedback on that on 6th Avenue or?
No.
None.
None.
Nothing on House and also, right?
Well, there's a lot of things I think we need some feedback on, and I think I'm going to have to be getting.
Yeah, I mean, those bike lanes seem like they're kind of timely, right? For the next 2 or 3 months, if there's going to be, I know when Janine had brought up just going to schools, you know, and alternative.
Well,
it's unfortunate we haven't heard
okay.
back,
Also, I understand some new parking rules have been put in, which we had not been consulted about. So there's a lot of little loose ends that DOT needs to get to us on. And we'll be reminding them.
the temporary, everything's on a temporary basis. All right, Frederica.
Carter, can I
Yeah.
just take a shout out to Shirley and the Department of Transportation. There was a light, a speed light at Leroy and West Street that was shining directly up and lighting up everybody's apartment. And within really 2 days, the Department of Transportation contacted the vendor, adjusted the light, and problem solved.
Oh, great.
Really?
So if you have a problem, you know, with a light flashing into your apartment, it can be taken care of.
Right.
That's great. That's definitely nice to hear. And then Labor Day is on the 7th, so that obviously creates a makes I'd forgotten to bring up that we want to try and get the calendar out by the 24th, this coming Monday, just because the Labor Day is the way it falls is just a little bit disruptive as far as that all of our meetings fall in those first 2 weeks. We want to make sure that if people are interested in any of our committee meetings that they are aware of them before their attention is elsewhere. Frederica?
Sure. Hi, everybody. We have no individual applications for next year, but it's come to our attention that the Loft Board is revising their rules and regulations. And even though this is not a zoning issue, this is an issue that is extremely important to us on the affordable housing side. So we're going to take the month of September to familiarize ourselves with the changes that the Loft Board has in mind and get out ahead of their plans, because according to their calendar, we may have as little as 1 month to opine. And I think this is an important issue for us. So we're going to first present them with a list of questions. The Loft Board, which if you remember 5 years ago, they came to, the executive director of the Loft Board came to a couple of meetings that we had, very voluble, very willing to help. The current chair of the Loft Board has turned down our requests to either attend or send a representative. And so in the next week or so, we'll be putting together a list of questions. And if anybody, Susan Wittenberg, I'm particularly thinking of you. If you have some questions for the Loft Board or anybody else, please send them along right away, because we're going to put together a list and hope to get some responses in before our meeting on the 9th.
And CB2.
Wait, can I just ask a question, Frederica? I'm unfamiliar with this board. Is it the Lock Board?
Loft, L-O-F-T.
Loft. Oh, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Community Board 2 was incredibly involved in its whole formation of the original Loft Board, because most of the lofts were in this community, and now the lofts are spread out in other communities as well, just you know, through various changes, but this still governs a tremendous number of apartments in our community.
What we want to do, there's a huge amount to read. It's a daunting amount, and if you're not living in a loft and you're not part of that world, it's really hard to understand. So between now and the time of the meeting, my hope is that we can distill all the information down into something that is digestible. But at the same time that we're broaching the subject, the loft board has yet to finalize what their specific recommendations are going to be. So on the one hand, we want to get out ahead and understand it, and on the other hand, we would be wasting our time if we spend too much time on the individual details because they're not yet finalized.
Yeah, and they've been working on this for more than a year.
They've been working on it, I think, since 2018. I'll send out the large document, but they keep copious notes. And if you go to the loft board minutes, you can find all of their deliberations. But we're hoping to spare you all the detail by giving you the roadmap to the most salient points.
Great, thanks, Frederica. Chanel?
We're fine, usual, and if the odd application or so turns up, we can do it ahead of the meeting that's scheduled for the 14th.
Okay, that brings us to Janine.
We met with Trinity Real Estate and their advisors last week just to get an update. And I'll follow up with them because they were going to either come in September or October. This might be tight for them to make a decision to come by this date. And then all the other stuff with schools is fluid. You know, there may be school by that day or not. No. So I will follow up with Trinity, and if that is a no, come up work on another topic.
And just so that's the Duarte Square School.
That's the Duarte Square School.
AKA 2 Hudson Street, right?
Yes, it's 2 Hudson. Yes, where there's that empty lot and restaurant now, and that was part of the Hudson Square rezoning. That they would, when the building is built, they would build a core and shell of the school plus additional space, recreation space for the community within that core and shell.
And then Susanna, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hold on. So let me get, hi, yeah. Wait, I want to video.
I've got 2 screens, so I'm just...
Hi there. I think that homelessness is a big, is in a lot of people's minds. And so I'm thinking that at our date of September 22nd is fine. I spoke today to someone at CUCS, which is part of the Manhattan Consortium of Outreach, to talk about this. And I think that what I'd like to do is a reprise of a meeting we had some months ago where we have representatives from the groups that do outreach on street homelessness in our district, and also someone from the Church of the Village who has a kind of, worm's eye view of who's coming in and what's going on. And then someone from the Department for Social Services. I talked to Corey's office. It's a big topic for them, but not so much in CB2 as much as it is, for example, in Chelsea. But we want to, I think it's important for people to be able to vent their concerns. And at the same time, we don't want it to be just, a screaming match. We want to be able to provide some information and some answers. Sadly, I don't think that there really is an answer, but we want to make whatever. We want to ask the right questions and find out what's going on there. So I think that has more urgency than some of the other topics that I've been talking about for committee, and that's what we were thinking of.
Okay, great. Thanks, Susanna. And then Mar, Equity Working Group.
Hi. Yes, so I guess haven't we already, sorry, I have to take my headphones out. I can only hear myself echo in my ears. We had our last meeting, which I think we covered on the last exec, did we not?
Yeah.
We did. So our next meeting is September 23rd or 27th. I can't remember the date, sorry.
23rd.
23rd. And we're gonna go over, hopefully, Amy, all of the chairs will have gotten back to us by then with their processes. And if they have, that is what we will present on the 23rd, and we will go over those processes. If not, for any reason, we are considering a town hall with minority business owners in the area. And that's about it, just to get some feedback from them on their experiences, particularly in relation to their correspondence with the board.
Great.
Can I just say, can I just jump in? Thank you to everybody who's filled out the spreadsheet, but there are quite a few people who haven't. And I just like to point out that not all the data buckets are relevant to every group, but with the equity working group is on there. All the working groups are on there. The executive committee is there. I'm not sure who exactly would fill that in, but if you could please try to fill it out in the next week or two, I'd really, really appreciate it. And if you're having any trouble, just let me know. I'll be happy to help.
Great, thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much, Amy.
All right, and then Robin and Valerie? You guys are good on the 24th?
Yeah, I think Valerie spoke about the 24th, right?
Okay, yep. All right, and then we have the two, Joe, you any other thoughts? Are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hey, on any thoughts on getting any of the agencies to give any updates or?
Yeah, SAPO. No, I haven't contacted anyone at SAPO from me. Have you, Bob?
I'm shaking his head.
Okay. Yeah, no, we haven't received any other updates on, past the end of September, but I'll send them an email at SAPO.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that sort of some people are sort of trying to do things, right? As we move forward. So it might be interesting to hear a little thinking on what stepping stones might be.
Yeah, that's good.
As far as smaller events that people theoretically have to, file permits for, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. So
we'll do that for October.
Yeah, they're if we can find out from them, unless they've got guidance already. But yeah, okay, great, thanks. And then economic development and small business, Janet.
Well, there's a lot of legislation cooking, from various city council people. I need to sift through it, figure out what's real, tenable, and then from that, we'll set up something for October. I also don't know. I mean, none of us know if there's going to be more economic stimulus coming. So I'm going to keep my eye both on what we're doing locally, and then if there's any stimulus, and from that, we'll have a meeting in October. So that's the plan.
I guess that's a really big question, the federal money. And I saw today, I can't remember the exact details. In the city, they're just talking about the state money too, that there's another $1 billion shortfall there from some aspect. And it's starting to creep up into city services too, I guess, with those issues. Okay, great, thanks. Have I missed anybody?
Rich Cacapolo's on.
Oh, Rich, you're with us. You want to talk about just parks next month? Oh, you're muted, Rich.
Hi. Yeah, don't have a set topic yet. Hudson River Park reached out today, wanted to make sure our meeting was on the 2nd. But when I asked them what they wanted to talk about, they didn't have a good, they didn't get back to me. So the only other thing we're trying to do is something with, you know, Duarte Square Park and school, but I haven't heard back from Parks yet.
And just so everybody knows, I don't know, did we mention this, Dan? Do you want to talk about the feedback we got on the bike lane?
Oh, we got rejected, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to add one thing to Janet. You know, I attended the webinar by that was hosted by the SBA, and she does weekly webinars. So if anybody wants to know practices in which to apply for forgiveness on a PPP loan, that does happen. And then Robin, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about all the things that are going on with Little Island too. That's why I have the floor. Can you hear me?
Sorry, talk about what?
Yeah, can you just repeat that? You cut off.
Little Island.
Oh, Little Island. Oh, yeah. They are right. They're doing performance in the park. They are hiring. They're doing a submission process for performing artists. There's going to be a review panel to figure out how they're going to program these various spaces in the park. Not the main spaces. I get the sense there's lots of little alcoves and wandering around. So that's very exciting. They also are hiring for 4 positions, actual hardcore positions. So yeah, they're definitely a beacon of hope right now, and the energy is great. So thanks for reminding me about that.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And Dan, is there anything else going on in Hunts River Park? I mean, they talk about their budgets at all, or any impacts?
We have a very active new member of the Hudson Park Advisory Council, and that is Tom Fox, who writes long emails and long lists for the Hudson River Park Trust to actually answer. Since we're in summer recession right now, we're not really that active, but it does seem as though we are going to be getting hard answers for decisions that the trusts are making in terms of what's happening more uptown with moving a vessel, talking about dredging and other issues that are just taken for granted. And Tom, Tom is not just taking what the trust is saying for truth. So I would say it's being handled well. There's not too much controversies, and he's really digging into that question in budget because oftentimes that's not shared with us, the specifics. Everything is given to us holistically in round numbers. So I think that you're going to get a lot more information over the next few months when it comes to the trust and sharing numbers.
Great. And just so everybody knows, the concession over at Pier 45 looks like it's doing pretty well and is in gear and open if anybody's interested in that.
I've been there a couple of times. It was interesting, Carter. It's actually a question I had for you. You know, they weren't granted a liquor license until last Wednesday.
Right.
But what is the law? Why can't you serve? Is it just an internal policy that you can't BYOB if you don't have a liquor license, or is that?
Yeah, no, that's you can't BYOB. It's just not allowable. But I thought they were serving before that, but I could have been wrong. I didn't stop them.
Serving drinks, but not inside to eat. It was kind of like backwards. It didn't make sense.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I know that a lot of these applications are so slow going through the liquor authority. And I know since they've been, people haven't all been in the office, it's just been even slower. And on top of that, so many people have been involved in a lot of the disciplinary hearings and, their staff members. So that's one of the biggest issues, I think, is just the time to process things when things actually get to the liquor authority. I mean, that's a great case in point where you have a seasonal business and had to wait so long for this to get processed. But they weren't here that long ago, were they? I mean, that was February. That sound about right?
I think it was more recent than that.
Yeah, maybe March.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they came virtually. Mara, do you remember? I remember we were talking about when they came. Was that we were meeting on Zoom, right?
I don't remember either.
Yeah, I think we were meeting on Zoom. So that's actually a fairly. Yeah, so that's actually a fairly, given the speed of things there, that actually is a little moved along in the right timeframes there, maybe even a little faster. But yeah. All right. Does anybody else have anything else to?
I know this is really early, but I was. Are we gonna the October calendar? Or how are we gonna figure that out? Sort of the normal time in September.
Yeah, Bob's been sort of sketching out the times a little bit, but the
Okay.
you know,
Because I know we have these challenges with the Zoom account, and I'm trying to manage the expectations of my committee. We've met so infrequently and on different dates, and I just want to be as thoughtful and respectful of their time as I can be. And I, sent them an email today alerting them of the 24th, which is not our normal date, and to prepare to meet in October. I gave them the 6th, but I know that's an SLA night, so I just don't, I want to be able to.
Yeah, well, the SLA meetings, because there's so many applications and they have to write so many resolutions, we really need to have those. That was something for both the co-chairs, really made a point of, if they have the obligation of writing all the resolutions, they really need the time.
Right,
So
which is fine, but I might need to be designated on a new night, so my members
Right.
now know that on Wednesdays or Thursdays or whatever of the second week. Right now, it's just Tuesdays the first week of the month, and clearly that's not going to be working anymore. So,
Yeah, I know. And Bob, I don't know what the holidays look like in October too, and what that impact. I haven't looked at the October calendar yet, but that's it's definitely a
You
challenge.
have Indigenous Peoples Day, former Columbus Day.
oh, okay. Well, in any
Yeah.
case, I know it's a little early, but it was on my mind today, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, it's yeah, we've got Columbus Day. I don't see any other holidays, except for Election Day the next month, which is exciting. Yeah, so, okay. All right, so anybody have anything else? William?
Yeah, I thought I heard someone, I think it was maybe Rich, mention SBA webinars covering topics such as loan forgiveness. If there's a link to that, that's something I'd be interested in looking at.
Yeah, Dan had brought it up, I think.
Dan, okay.
Well, William, I'll send you some information. Make a note of it.
Thanks.
And now that we, now that we have a new website, we can start, this is a good opportunity for the different committees to just, if we've got information that we can maybe put it on committee pages. I mean, it's something definitely, if you can email Bob, Josh and I, and we can work on setting that up, because I think it makes it a lot easier to share this information, relevant links to things, especially as Dan was pointing out that they're doing these meetings weekly. It's a good thing to share with people. As much as it seems like this information is available to everybody, some of the data that I've seen is that the outreach, that there are communities that are not receiving all the information, and so the more we share it and other people can share with others, the better it is. And we can at least hopefully reduce that number at least a little bit. Chanel?
It came to my mind that you speak of the sharing on the website, it may be for others too. We don't have any systematic way, except application by application, of letting the applicants know of what our procedures are and what our ground rules are and so forth. And when everyone could get it.
Yeah, you froze for a second, but yeah, that's what we've been looking forward to, having a new website, which we can make those changes ourselves instead of having make the changes. So if you have information that you'd like to include for the landmarks committee, you can send it to Josh and I and Bob, and we'll.
Okay, I'll have the word with the committee at the next meeting, assuming it's as short as the last one, and we'll come up with something, and Susan and I can make a draft and see how it works.
Yeah, and it's also great to share the resources. So if people, that's where we can put information on if people want to make landmarks complaints, and the designation reports for our areas, things like that. Just, it's much easier to have it as a one-stop for, as a lot of the questions that we get are you know, where is this information? And so we can just put it right on there.
And also information that people might be interested in for tours and seminars and so forth.
Right, that's right.
Could come through with
Educational
another
elements.
section. We'll work on that and have a little committee.
Great. Thanks, Chanel. Anything else?
Yeah, Carter, I just want to remind everyone that I'm going to be going on vacation. So when the chairs send in your the language for your agendas, please send it to, make sure you include Josh as well, because he'll be kind of responsible for making sure the calendar gets put together properly and goes out.
Yeah, and we really need to get it out on
Monday.
Monday. What's the date on Monday? In October, let's see, the 24th. So we can get that out and share it everywhere.
And Carter, you can whip tomorrow along on Thursday night as fast as tonight so we don't miss the speeches, please.
Yes, yeah, so we're going to try and move that along. I've mentioned a little bit to the elected officials that this is supposed to be brief, but I realize, you know, we can't completely cut them off. So I'm just going to ask that they really keep it.
They're running
tight.
too.
What was that, Chanel?
They're also standing for election, so they want to speak.
Oh. I think that part should move along smoothly. Great, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
See you on Thursday.